Hey Goblin, you've been really practicing those war drums.
I'll bring the generic goblin noise!
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the Generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game features Arja's return, plus he's brought two new friends, with John and Matt joining us. You may remember Matt with one of my Modern with Mudsta games, and he's playing Nalia. He keeps Hall the Bandit Lord, Fetid Heath, Cathal Lochwain, Plains, Dream Stealer, and a Containment Priest. John is also new, playing a brand new commander I've never actually seen with his Queza, and keeps Talisman of Hierarchy, Swamp, Command Tower, Sign in Blood, Forbidden Orchard, Flooded Strand, and Force of Will. Arja is playing Ayli, and keeps Villas Broker of Blood, Diabolic Intent, Orzhov Signet, Buried Alive, Ranger Captain of Eos, Plains, and a Swamp. I've brought out the Duke of Dumpsters Daretti, keeping Ugin the Ineffable, Carekeep, Great Furnace, Hedron Archive, Phyrexian Revoker, Mindstone, and a Walking Ballista. Arja wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws, plays a Plains, and casts a turn 1 Esper Sentinel. John plays a Flooded Strand, cracking it and losing 1 for Rafine's Tower. Matt just plays a tapped Hall the Bandit Lord. My turn has a Great Furnace, and I pass to turn 2, and Arja starts us off. Arja's got a Swamp, and he then goes to combat, poking me for 1 with the Sentinel. After combat, he casts Ayli and passes. John's got a Command Tower, and then pays 2 for Talisman of Hierarchy. He can't pay the 1, and Arja draws. Matt's got a Plains, and he loses 3 life to tap the Hall of the Bandit Lord to help cast Selfless Spirit with haste. He then moves to combat, swinging the Spirit at Arja for 2, and passes. I've got a Carekeep, and I cast Mindstone, not paying for the Sentinel, and Arja draws. Arja's got a Plains for turn, and moves to combat. He swings both of his creatures at Matt for 3, and in his second main phase, casts Ranger Captain of Eos, which as they enter, tutor to hand Nomad's Encore. John plays a Forbidden Orchard, and then taps out to cast Smothering Tithe, giving Matt the Spirit token, and Arja draws another card. Matt draws, and doesn't pay for the Tithe. He then plays Fetid Heath, and then casts Dream Stealer with haste from the Hell of the Bandit Lord, losing 3. He swings the Dream Stealer at Arja, and the Selfless Spirit at John, and they both take the hits. Arja has to discard a card, pitching Phyrexian Arena to the Dream Stealer trigger, and Matt passes to me. I draw and play Inkmoth Nexus. I then cast a Hedron Archive, and once that's out, cast Phyrexian Revoker, naming Ayli as it enters. Arja's got a Swamp for turn, and casts an Orzhov Signet. He then plays out his Nomads, and he goes to combat. He swings at me with Ayli and the Ranger Captain, and I take a total of 5. Arja then passes turn. John's got an Island for turn, and pays 2 black for Sign in Blood, giving a Spirit token to Matt again, losing 2 and drawing 2, and Arja draws a card. He then moves to cast his commander, Queza. Arja responds by cracking the Ranger Captain, and once its ability resolves, he then casts Vanishing Verse and exiles the Smothering Tithe. Queza then resolves, and John passes. Matt's got a Plains for turn, and he then plays Lotho. He moves to combat, and swings his creature at Arja. Arja blocks the spirits with the Nomad's Encore, and redirects the 1 damage from it to Ayli. Arja then takes a total of 4, and has to discard a card from the Dream Stealer, and passes. I draw and play a Wooded Foothills, cracking it to find a mountain. I then play Nevin Jarl's Disc, which comes in tapped, and pass. Arja draws and casts Luris, and then casts an Entome. This is the second spell for turn, and Matt makes a treasure token and loses 1 from the Lotho trigger, and Arja puts an Animate Dead into his graveyard. He then moves to cast it from Luris to try and reanimate the Villas, and Matt responds by flashing in Containment Priest, losing another 3 from the Hall of the Bandit Lord, but Villas gets exiled instead of coming in at least. Arja then passes after that. John draws, and Arja loses a life to Queza, and John gains one as well. He decides to leave his mana open and passes to Matt. Matt draws and plays a Snowfield Sinkhole. He then plays Invasion of Gorbakan, choosing me to defend it. He then chooses John with the Enter the Battlefield trigger, exiling Omniscience from his hand, and taxing it for 2 more mana. Going to combat, Matt swings his creatures at the invasion to clear it. And once that's done, casts a Light Shield Array. This is the second spell for turn, which triggers Lotho, and Matt loses one and makes a treasure. He then moves to his end step, putting a +1/+1 counters onto the creatures that attacked, and passes to me. I draw and play a Walking Ballista, putting 2 into the X's, and pass after that. Arja's got Buried Alive, going to find a Daru Spiritualist, a Dark Confident, and his own Lotho. He then casts Lotho from Lurrus from his graveyard and moves to combat. He swings Lurrus at me for 3, and I take it, and he gains 3. Arja then plays a Temple of Silence, scrying 1 as it comes in. John draws and drains Arja again for 1 with Queza's ability. He then plays a Swamp and passes to Matt. Matt's got a Nalia for turn, and then plays Castle Lochthwain. Moving to combat, he swings the Selfless Spirit, Spirit Token, and Lotho at me, and the Dreamstealer at John. I respond, activating the Walking Ballista to ping the Selfless Spirits twice, and then crack the Mind Stone to draw a card. I then finally crack the disc to try and wipe away most of the board, but Matt sacrifices the Lightstone Array and saves his creatures by giving them hexproof and indestructible until end of turn, and John and I still take the hits, with John discarding 2 cards. After that, Matt passes. I draw and cast a Faithless Looting, drawing 2 and discarding 2. I then play a Mana Crypt and a Soul Guide Lantern, exiling a card from Arja's graveyard as it comes in. Without a land drop though, I have to pass. Arja draws and plays Silent Clearing, and then passes to John. During his end step, John taps the Forbidden Orchard to give Arja a Spirit. John just draws and plays Talisman of Dominance. Matt's got a Command Tower for turn, and he plays 8.5 Tails off the top of his library thanks to Nalia. He then plays an Asylum Visitor from hand. Moving to combat, Matt swings Nalia at John, the Spirit Token and Containment Priest at Arja, and the Dreamstealer at me. Arja blocks the Spirit Token with his own Spirit Token, and everyone takes the hit, and I discard 2 after taking damage because of the Dreamstealer trigger. After that, Matt passes, and during his end step, I crack the Soul Guide Lantern to draw a card. I lose my Mana Crypt flip and take 3 before drawing. I then play a Mountain, and cast Daretti, down-ticking my Planeswalker to swap the Mana Crypt for Nevin Jarl's Disc again. I then pass, with Arja sacrificing the Silent Clearing during my end step to draw a card. Arja draws and plays a Swamp. He passes, and John once more gives Arja a Spirit Token at the end of turn by tapping the Forbidden Orchard. John draws and plays Echo of Eons, to which Matt responds by casting a Chroma's Will. We then all Time Twister, and John then plays a Plains and passes after that. Matt's got an Urborg for turn, and then casts Soul Ring, and once that's out, Timna the Weaver, giving it haste because he taps the Hall of the Bandit Lord and loses 3. This also triggers Lotho, losing him 1 and making him a treasure token. He then gets to replay the Selfless Spirit, which he'd redrawn from the Echo. Moving to combat, he swings Nalia and the 8.5 Tails at Arja, Timna at Daretti, Lotho at me, and the Dreamstealer at John. Arja double chumps with his Spirit tokens, and then cycles Baron more, but with no other effects, everyone then takes their hits. This has John discarding 2 cards from the Dreamstealer, and Matt gains 2 life from the Timna, but then uses it to pay for her ability and draws 2. Matt follows up with a Mardu Strike Leader and passes to me. I draw and play a Sequestered Stash, and then cast Voltaic Key. I activate the disc, and Matt responds by sacrificing Selfless Spirit. I then respond to my activation by activating the key to untap the disc again, and then pay 1 to reactivate it again, so this way the board up will resolve before the Selfless Spirit trigger. Matt in response floats 2 mana from his treasures, and the disc then resolves. Before leaving the phases though, Matt uses that mana to flash in Archivist of Ogma. After that, I pass, and during my end step, Arja attempts to cast Ad Nauseam, but John responds by exiling a Consecrated Sphinx to exile it with Force of Negation. Arja's got a command tower and pays 3 black for Necropotence, and then puts 2 life into it, so he gets to exile 2 cards to put to hand at the end of turn. He then passes, and does so. John's got a Talisman of Hierarchy, and then a Felwar Stone. With his hand empty, John then flashes back Echo of Aeons, which has Arja responding by flashing his own Archivist of Ogma. We then draw our 7, and once John's done, he plays out a Thought Vessel and then a Mystic Remora. Matt's got a Swamp for turn and replays Lotho, and then Black Market Connections, which triggers Lotho. He makes a treasure token and loses 1, and doesn't pay for the Mystic Remora, so John draws. He then follows that up with a hasty Seams's Dungeoneer and takes the initiative, searching his library for the basic as he enters the Undercity. Going to combat, Matt swings the Dungeoneer at John and the Archivist at Archa, and Matt gets an on-attack trigger from the Dungeoneer targeting the Archivist. Arja responds to this by casting Swords to Plowshares and exiles the Archivist, with Matt gaining some life. He doesn't pay for the Remora trigger though, and John draws another card. John then takes 3 from the Dungeoneer, and Matt passes turn. I draw and play Urza's Saga. I then animate an Inkmoth Nexus and swing it at Matt for 1, giving him a poison and taking the initiative. I go and find a basic mountain. I then move to my second main phase, casting Imperial Recruiter to go and find Dockside Extortionist, and I pass. Arja skips his draw and swings the Archivist at me for the initiative, but I chump with the Recruiter to deny him it. He still wants the initiative though, so he casts a White Plume Adventurer from his hand to get it anyway, and he goes to search for a swamp. He then plays out an Angelic Protector, and once that's out, puts 2 life into Necropotence, exiling 2 cards to put to hand at the end of turn. John pays for the Mystic Remora cumulative upkeep and draws. He then replays Queza, and casts a Cleric class, and then an Orzhov Signet. He follows up with Knight's Whisper, drawing 2 and losing 2, but gains the 2 back plus 2 more from Cleric class and Queza combined, and he pings Matt for 2 with the ability as well. After that, John passes. Matt draws and makes a treasure from the Black Market Connections, losing some life. He then recasts Nalia, and plays a Brenton Forge Tender from hand. Moving to combat, he swings the Seasoned Dungeoneer and Lotho at John, and he has the on-attack trigger from the Dungeoneer go on itself. Matt gets to explore, and he puts Despark to his graveyard to put a +1/+1 counter onto the Dungeoneer, and John decides not to block, and he takes the hit. After that, Matt plays a Mindblade Renderer off the top and passes to me. I draw and tick up Urza's Saga. I then play a Mountain for turn, and cast Dockside Extortionist, getting 13 treasures. I then play a Mystic Forge, and recast Daretti, not paying for the Remora triggers. This has John drawing more cards, and draining Matt with the Queza triggers. I then uptick Daretti to discard 2, and draw 2. And activate the Mystic Forge to exile the top card of my library, and lose 1. I follow up with Staff of Domination, and pass. Arja skips his draw, and scries with the Undercity as he moves to the next room. He then recasts Ayli, and then plays Warrior Encore and goes to combat. He swings the Angelic Protector at John, who takes the 2 and passes. John lets the Remora goes and draws for turn. He plays Reliquary Tower and then casts Omniscience. Arja responds by targeting the Angelic Protector infinitely with Warrior Encore's ability, massively pumping up its toughness, and then sacrifices the Angel to Ayli to gain basically infinite life. John then plays Lich's Mastery, Alhamrad's Archive, Solitary Confinement, and follows up with a Preordain, which gains him 2 life from Queza and draws him 2 more cards, and continues with his turn by casting Toothy. And then Emergence Powers, which has us wheel. John is then able to kill Matt and I with the Queza triggers and draw his entire deck, but can't kill Archa with his infinite life. He then plays a Whispering Madness, but after doing the math, Archa has exactly the amount of cards as John, so he doesn't deck out, but instead will draw his entire deck. And thanks to Necropotence, Archa will never draw, and therefore never deck out, and he has enough access and answers to deal with Lich's Mastery and Solitary Confinement, so John scoops it up. Game review time. This game was 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 54 seconds, and it also had a complete lack of green in it. That was kind of fun, and it was great to see 2 Orzhov decks doing so well. I think Matt's Nalia deck did great and was really aggressive. That Hall of the Bandit Lord cost him a lot of life, but it really made sure that he was able to keep coming out swinging, which is basically what his deck wanted to do thanks to the party mechanic. As I was the player after his turn, it often felt like dealing with him fell to my shoulders, and I found myself having to look and find and use a lot of my resources to just keep him in check. As a result, I really wasn't able to get far ahead, and the fact that I was only casting Daretti mid-game, which is not what the deck wants to do, just didn't help me. I enjoyed seeing Arja's Ayli deck. This isn't the first time I've seen it, although it might be the first time I've recorded it, and his combo is pretty well telegraphed. He doesn't hide that it's a combo deck, so everyone knew what it was going in, and it was cool to see that he had a lot of redundant pieces that even though he lost 1 or 2 here and there, he was never fully stopped. John's Queza deck was sweet as well, and basically his deck kinda seems like a Nekasar deck where it runs a lot of wheel effects. Although instead of Nekasar pinging people, his kinda drains them, so that's kinda fun. We all had a good laugh when his combo that he thought for sure was gonna win him the game actually got stopped because of Necropotence. I think if anything that Preordain earlier on unfortunately set him back because it prevented him from drawing 1 extra card thanks to the emergence power, which in turn prevented Arja from drawing that extra card as well. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.